Well, hey, neighbor.
Hey, man, how are you?
Thank you for being on the show, Chris Hopkinson. I really appreciate all you're doing for the Chesapeake Bay. I'll tell you a story, and I don't know if you remember this. In 2019, I was working late. The light was on in my office, and you came and pounded on my window like a total freak. And you came in and you told me your vision, that you wanted to paddle the entire length of the Chesapeake Bay, and you were looking for sponsors. And you asked me at that time for a sponsorship of $25,000. And I went home and told Dawn about our interaction. I said, I'm a little worried about Chris. He's lost his mind. He's crazy. But you have to be a little crazy and a little bit passionate to do what you did. And I thank you because you are helping restore the Chesapeake Bay, something I'm passionate about. I know you're passionate about. So tell us your story and what you kicked off in 2020.
Yeah, so a couple points. So here we are, like, on the bay in a community. I grew up here, you grew up here.
Yep.
I never had access to the water. I think like most people around here, like this is about as close as most people get to the bay or the river.
Yep.
Never had a boat growing up, never had access to my community until 8 years ago my wife got me a stand-up paddleboard for Christmas, right? And her goal was, how do I get him out of the house, right? Little did she know how far I would take that. So once I started going out on the bay, there's a different appreciation once you're on the water, right?
Yes.
I know you go out on the bay on your boat to disconnect, right? It's a super calming experience. You get out there, as soon as you leave your dock, the beach, whatever it is, you feel immediately disconnected from Zoom and your mobile phone and all the stresses. And I think that's why a lot of people love the bay, right? It just has this calming effect. And so that was what I first experienced. And I think on top of that, you know, I started feeling connected to, especially paddling, when you're standing up and you're kind of going slow and you can get into little areas. I just started feeling connected to everything around the bay, the crabs and the herons and the eagles and the ospreys. And I kind of quickly realized, look, I'm the guest here, right? I'm the visitor.
Wow,
we
that's
have like an enormous responsibility, in my mind, to leave the bay better than we found it. So around the same time, it was almost as if I was being called, right?
Yeah.
I started reading about oysters. Again, grew up here, had no idea what an oyster did, other than, you know, it was a good appetizer at McGarvey's. But they filter, a single oyster can filter 50 gallons of water per day.
It's incredible.
Amazing. And the population is down 99%. So, I know that everyone thinks of the Chesapeake as like crab town, but it really used to be like oyster town.
Okay.
There used to be so many oysters in the bay that they could filter the entire bay, 19 trillion gallons of water in a week.
Wow.
Right? And now there's not ever going to happen again, probably. So in my kind of crazy sense, vision, whatever it might be, I started to think, you know, I wonder if someone paddleboarded the entire length of the bay, if people would pay attention to the story and importance of oysters, and if we could raise some money for Oyster Recovery Partnership.
Let me stop you there. The length of the bay is plus or minus 200 miles, right?
Yep.
So you paddled
207.
207 miles,
Yeah.
and it took,
9 days.
I mean, that's like Forrest Gump on his run.
Yes.
It's crazy.
I'm kind of looking for someone a little bit more attractive, like inspirational, sort of a sex figure, but yeah.
So you launch Bay Paddle.
Yeah. Started
And
Bay Paddle.
tell us about it.
Yeah, started Bay Paddle. So it took, you know, you talk about me kind of crashing your window in 2019. It took 3 years. So like I came up with the idea in 2017. By the way, recreational paddleboarder. You know, my wife got me a board. She also got me 2 infant life jackets and was like, go take the kids, right?
Yeah.
So I was paddling like 3 to 4 miles, you know, flopping around, kids were jumping in and out. I had no, you know, again, never was on the bay, had very little experience on the bay in any craft, much less a paddleboard.
Yep.
So if someone had said, you know, I bet if somebody paddleboarded the bay, we could raise a lot of money to protect it, I would not have been the person that they selected. It just...
But you did it.
It just kept coming up to me, like, and I kept kind of like, you know, like, I don't think I'm the right guy for this. Can we find somebody else?
But you did it.
Right.
So in 2020, you actually did it. It took 9
Yeah.
days. Was generally a heroic physical feat. Nobody had ever done it before.
Yep.
How much did you raise? How much have you raised? What's the disbursement of funds look like? What are you supporting currently, and what's the future of it?
Yeah, so we raised almost $200,000 that first year,
That's
supporting
incredible.
Oyster Recovery Partnership. So that $200,000 went directly to them, and it helped put 20 million oysters back in the bay.
Wow.
You know, I sort of realized, like, once I crossed into the Atlantic, like, you know, this isn't really finished. This is just the beginning. Can we do this annually? Like, can we have an annual race that continues to support the bay?
Yep.
And so that's what we've done. The last 2 years, we've had an annual race, generally shorter distance now. The first year we did the entire length. Last year we did 47 miles, and we've raised another 200 grand in those 2 years and had about 210 paddlers participate.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations. You also support the Chesapeake Conservancy, which has a goal of making the Chesapeake Bay
a national recreation area. So yeah, the first year was Oyster Recovery Partnership. Since then, we've added Chesapeake Conservancy. Their mission is to turn the bay basically into a national recreation area, which is managed by the national parks. And then Waterkeepers. So the Waterkeepers are all the river keepers on the bay. They're kind of the boots in the water.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, Chris, if you're out there doing that for that long, what is your favorite place to go get oysters if you're going to go to a bar?
Oh man, that's a great question. So I'll tell you where. So this is what I learned kind of paddling the bay quickly. Like a lot of our experiences, especially on the Western Shore, are really between like the Magothy and the Severn. That's kind of where we all stick. Like I got to see parts of the bay that most people don't ever go to. So Rock Hall is now one of my favorite parts of the bay. Right?
Good tip.
Haven Harbor South is amazing. And then a little bit further away is Cape Charles.
Okay.
So Cape Charles is the second largest public beach on the bay. Sandy Point is number 1.
Yeah.
And Cape Charles is a golf cart community. So everybody drives around in their golf carts.
Cool.
So
I've actually never been there.
It's amazing. So I would say like any restaurants in Cape Charles, any restaurants in Rock Hall, like Waterman's is in Rock Hall. They've got great seafood, great oysters, great everything.
Yeah. Well, thank you for everything you're doing for the bay. It's truly an amazing story. I'm happy to share it with my audience.
Thanks, man.
Thanks. Look forward to supporting you.
Good
Thank you,
seeing
Chris.
Yep.